The soft hum of the refrigerator filled the silence in the kitchen as I stood at the sink, staring out the window. I could see the small garden Lily had planted in the early years of our marriage. Back then, everything had felt full of promise, life, love, even the future. But now, the garden was overgrown with weeds, and the flowers that once thrived were long dead. It felt like a metaphor for us. Something we'd nurtured and cared for, now left to rot under the weight of neglect. The plate in my hand had been clean for minutes, but I kept scrubbing it, the motion automatic, giving me something to focus on besides the gnawing sense of loss that had settled in my chest. Lily wasn't home yet. She was out, again. And just like every other night for the past few months, she hadn't told me where she was going. I used to ask, but now it felt pointless. She'd give me some vague answer, something about seeing friends, or needing a break. But we both knew that wasn't the full story. She didn't just need space, she needed distance. From me. I heard the door open, the quiet click as she slipped in. My grip on the plate tightened, but I didn't turn around. I couldn't. Mark? Her voice was soft, tentative, as if she knew what I was thinking. Yeah? I replied, still facing the window, watching the last sliver of daylight disappear behind the trees. There was a long pause, and I could hear her setting her things down on the counter, the rustle of her jacket as she hung it up. I went out with some of the girls, she said, her voice sounding casual, but too casual, like she was trying too hard. It was a late dinner. You didn't need to wait up. I didn't, I said flatly, my fingers tightening around the sponge. She sighed, the sound heavy with frustration. Why do you always do this? I finally turned around, leaning against the counter. Do what? Act like I'm out doing something wrong every time I'm late. She crossed her arms, leaning on the kitchen island, her eyes flashing with irritation. It's not like I'm. Not like what, Lily? I cut her off, my voice sharper than I intended. Not like you're pulling away from me? Not like you're disappearing for hours without telling me where you're going or who you're with. She looked down, not meeting my eyes, and that silence was louder than anything she could have said. It was the silence that had been killing us for months. We didn't fight. We didn't yell. We just stopped talking. Stopped connecting. And in that silence, my mind filled in the gaps, creating scenarios that I didn't want to believe but couldn't ignore. Mark, it's not like that, she finally whispered, her voice barely audible. I just need space. I need time to think. Think about what? I asked, the frustration building in my chest. About us. About whether you want to be married to me anymore? She flinched, as if the words stung more than she expected. That's not fair. I let out a bitter laugh. Fair? Lily, nothing about this is fair. I've been trying. I've been here, waiting for you to talk to me, to tell me what's going on. But you just keep shutting me out. It's not that simple, she murmured, still avoiding my gaze. I don't know how to explain it. Then try, I said, stepping closer, the hurt in my voice seeping through. Tell me what happened. Why are you so distant? Why do you look at me like you don't even see me anymore? For a moment, I thought she might say something, anything, that would make sense of all this. But instead, she just shook her head, turning away from me. I can't, not tonight, she said softly. I'm tired. I stood there, frozen, watching as she walked out of the kitchen and down the hallway. I heard the bedroom door close, the sound echoing in the empty house. My hands were trembling, my chest tight with frustration and grief. This was the unspoken distance between us. A distance we couldn't seem to cross, no matter how hard I tried to reach her. It was like she had already left, her body still here but her heart somewhere else. Maybe with someone else. The thought gnawed at me, but I had no proof, just the suffocating weight of suspicion. Later that night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling while Lily slept beside me. Or at least, I thought she was asleep. Her breathing was too even, too controlled, and I knew she was awake. Just like I was. We were in the same room, but we might as well have been on opposite sides of the world. I'm not going to let this go on forever, I whispered, more to myself than to her. There was no response. Not that I had expected one. My mind wandered back to the conversation I'd had with my parents earlier that week. I had needed to talk to someone, anyone, about what was happening. About how lost I felt. Maybe it's just a phase, my mom had said when I told her everything. Sometimes people get tired, but it doesn't mean it's over. Or maybe it is. My dad had added, ever the realist. Mark, you can't force someone to stay if they've already left in their heart. I had sat there, silent, letting their words wash over me, unsure which one of them was right. Was this just a rough patch, or was it something worse? I'm going to stay in the house for at least a year, I had said, the decision coming to me in that moment. It was Grandma's house. I'm not leaving it. Not yet, my dad had nodded. That's fair. But remember, Mark, if it's broken beyond repair, no house is going to fix that. Lying there in the dark, listening to the steady rhythm of Lily's breathing, I wondered if that was true. If we were already broken, and I was just clinging to the pieces, tomorrow would come, and with it, the same distance. The same unspoken wall between us. But I wasn't ready to give up yet, even if part of me knew it might already be too late. The moment I saw her come down the stairs that evening, I knew something was wrong. Lily was dressed differently than usual, not the casual look she'd wear on a typical night out with friends, but something more deliberate. Her black dress clung to her in a way that turned my stomach. It wasn't just the dress, it was the way she moved, with a confidence I hadn't seen in months, maybe years. Where are you going? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady as I stood near the front door, my arms crossed. She glanced at me briefly, then turned to check her reflection in the hallway mirror, applying lipstick as if she hadn't heard me. Out, she said casually. I told you about it earlier. I'm meeting some friends for dinner. I stared at her, my heart pounding, knowing this wasn't just another night out with her friends. I could feel the tension thickening between us, the unspoken truth that I'd been trying to ignore for too long. Dressed like that? I couldn't help the words as they came out, my voice laced with suspicion. Who are these friends exactly? Lily froze for a moment, her hand stilling as she capped her lipstick. She finally turned to face me, her eyes narrowing. What's that supposed to mean? You know what it means, I said, taking a step closer, my pulse quickening. You've been distant for months, Lily. You don't talk to me, you barely come home at a reasonable hour, and now you're going out dressed like this. She crossed her arms, her face hardening. So now I can't even dress up without getting interrogated? That's not what this is, I snapped, the frustration boiling over. I'm not stupid, Lily. I know something's going on. She rolled her eyes, brushing past me toward the door. You're being paranoid. I don't have time for this right now. I stepped in front of her, blocking her path. You're not going anywhere. Lily stopped short, glaring up at me. For a moment, neither of us spoke, the air between us heavy with tension. Her lips twisted into a bitter smile, and she shook her head as if I was some clueless child. Move, Mark. I'm leaving, she said, her voice cold and final. No, you're not, I said firmly, refusing to step aside. Not until we talk about this. Her jaw clenched, and I could see the anger flashing in her eyes. What do you think this is going to solve, huh? You standing here trying to control me? Trying to tell me what I can and can't do? You don't know me, Mark. I'm not trying to control you, Lily, I said, my voice shaking with the effort to keep calm. But we can't just keep living like this, pretending everything's fine when it's not. If you're unhappy, if you don't want to be here anymore, then just say it. But don't stand there and lie to me. She huffed a bitter laugh, running a hand through her hair as she paced to the side. What do you want me to say? That I'm sick of this marriage? That I can't stand being in the same house with you anymore? Why? I asked, my voice cracking under the weight of the question. What did I do? What changed? Lily stopped pacing and looked at me, her eyes filled with a mixture of frustration and something else I couldn't quite place. It's not just about you, Mark. It's about me. I need more. More than what this is, what we are. I'm suffocating here. Suffocating? I echoed, feeling the sting of her words. You're the one who shut me out. You're the one who stopped trying. And now you're just walking away? Like everything we built means nothing? It's not that simple, she said, shaking her head. It's not about love, Mark. It's about wanting more for myself. I'm tired of feeling stuck. I stared at her, the woman I'd spent years loving, feeling as if I was talking to a stranger. My mind raced with everything I wanted to say, but no words felt right. The silence between us was unbearable, a chasm that had grown too wide to bridge. Finally, I took a deep breath and said the one thing I never thought I'd say. If that's how you feel, then maybe you should leave. Lily blinked, caught off guard by my words. What? You heard me, I said, my voice steadier now, my decision clear. If you're that unhappy, if you want more than what we have, then maybe you should move out. Take some time. Figure out what you want. But I can't keep living like this. Not with you in this house, acting like I don't exist. She stared at me, her expression unreadable. You can't be serious. I am, I said, nodding. Take a break. Go stay with a friend, or get a place. But you can't have it both ways. You can't stay here, pretending we're still together, while you're out, doing whatever it is you're doing. For a moment, I thought she might agree. That she'd see the sense in what I was saying. But instead, her face hardened, and she took a step forward, her voice low and filled with defiance. I'm not going anywhere, she said, each word dripping with venom. This house isn't just yours, Mark. We both live here, and I'm not going to let you push me out just because you're insecure. Insecure? I repeated, feeling a flash of anger rise in me. This isn't about insecurity, Lily. This is about respect. And right now you're not showing me any. You want respect? She shot back, her eyes blazing. Maybe you should have thought about that before you started acting like a paranoid control freak. I'm not trying to control you, but I won't let you disrespect me in my own home, I said, my voice rising. You want to live your life? Fine. But you're not going to do it under my roof, she smirked, her lips curling in contempt. We'll see about that. The door slammed shut as she stormed out of the house, leaving me standing there, the air heavy with everything we hadn't said. I stared at the door for a long time, my mind spinning, wondering how it had come to this. How the woman I'd loved for so long had become someone I barely recognized. I stood there for a long time, my heart racing, anger coursing through me. Part of me wanted to run after her, to keep fighting, but another part of me knew it was useless. The distance between us wasn't something we could fix with another argument. It was too deep now, too wide. As I turned away from the door, my eyes landed on her car in the driveway. It was still parked there, gleaming under the dim light of the street lamp. I didn't think. I just acted. Before I knew it, I was outside grabbing the nearest tool I could find in the garage, a wrench. My chest heaved with a rage I could barely control as I approached the car, the wrench cold and heavy in my hand. With a hard swing, I brought it down on the windshield. The glass cracked under the force, splintering in all directions, a satisfying sound that matched the chaos in my mind. Another swing. And another. By the time I stopped, the windshield was shattered, the side mirrors bent at unnatural angles. My hands were shaking, my breath coming in ragged gasps, and yet, the anger was still there, simmering just beneath the surface. But it wasn't enough. None of this was enough. I stormed back into the house, grabbing Lily's phone from the kitchen counter. Without hesitation, I hurled it against the wall, watching as it shattered into pieces, the screen flickering and dying. The rage inside me was uncontrollable, and as I stood there amidst the wreckage, I knew things had changed forever. There was no going back now. The adrenaline still coursed through my veins as I stood in the dim light of our living room, surrounded by the remnants of Lily's shattered car and phone. My heart raced, pounding against my chest like a drum. I felt a mix of exhilaration and despair, an intense rush of vindication tangled with the bitter aftertaste of destruction. I had struck back, but what had I really accomplished? Just then, the front door swung open, and Lily stormed in, her face flushed with anger. "What the hell did you do to my car, Mark?" she yelled, her voice echoing through the house like a siren. I crossed my arms, my heart still racing. "What did you expect? You were just about to walk out that door, pretending everything was fine. You think you can treat me like this and just waltz away?" She stepped closer, her eyes narrowing. "This is insane. You've lost it. You don't get to vandalize my things just because you're angry." "Vandalize?" I echoed incredulously. What about the emotional vandalism you've done to our marriage? You've been gone for months, Lily. And tonight you were ready to leave for some date without even considering how I might feel, she scoffed, running a hand through her hair in frustration. This is not about some date. It's about me finding my own happiness. You've been suffocating me. Maybe you should have thought about that before you started treating me like a doormat. I shot back, my voice rising. You don't get to just walk away when things get tough. Lily laughed bitterly, shaking her head. Tough? You think this is tough? I've been living with a ghost for months, and you're telling me I'm the problem? I stepped toward her, the anger swirling inside me. I'm not a ghost, Lily. I'm right here, fighting for our marriage while you're off playing house with someone else. The moment the words left my mouth, I felt a chill wash over me. I wasn't sure what had compelled me to say that, but it felt like a truth that had been simmering beneath the surface, begging to be released. What are you implying? She asked, her voice low, a hint of fear flickering in her eyes. I'm not implying anything. You've been distant. You're the one who's been acting like you're in another relationship. She flinched, and for a moment I thought I might have gotten through to her. But the anger quickly returned, her face hardening. You're delusional if you think I'm cheating on you. This is all about you and your jealousy. Jealousy? This isn't jealousy, Lily. This is about survival. I won't let you throw our lives away just because you're having a midlife crisis. I'm not having a midlife crisis. I'm trying to figure out who I am, and I thought you'd support me, not destroy my property. Support you? I sneered. How do you think I feel, watching you tear apart our marriage while I'm trying to hold it together? You don't care about what I think or feel. Of course I care, she yelled back. But you're making it impossible for me to breathe. You're pushing me away. I shook my head, the distance between us feeling like a chasm too wide to cross. If that's what you really think, then maybe you should get out. You say you want to find yourself? Go do it. But not here. Not with me. Is that really what you want? She asked, her voice wavering slightly. You want me to leave? To just walk out? Yes. I shouted, my emotions boiling over. You're not happy here, so go. I'm done pretending everything is fine while you're out looking for something else. Lily's expression softened for just a moment, and I saw a flicker of hurt in her eyes. But then she steeled herself again, crossing her arms defiantly. You're a coward, Mark. You think you can just push me away and pretend you're the victim? That you're the only one hurting in this situation? Coward? I laughed bitterly, the words slicing through the air. You're the one who's running away from your problems instead of facing them. And now you want to blame me? Don't act like you're innocent in all this. You've done your share of neglecting this marriage, too. She shot back. You're too caught up in your own world to even notice what I needed. Maybe I wouldn't have to notice if you had talked to me like a partner instead of shutting me out. I yelled, the words spilling out before I could stop them. As the argument escalated, Lily turned and pointed to the door. You're out of control. I'm calling the police. Go ahead. I shouted, feeling the heat of anger surge through me. You're the one who deserves to be exposed for what you've done. But before she could reach for her phone, I saw a flash of red and blue lights outside, and the sound of sirens echoed in the night. My stomach dropped. I hadn't meant for it to come to this, but the thought of being arrested made me feel dizzy with anxiety. Lily opened the door, and I could see the officers approaching the house, their faces serious and cautious. I took a deep breath, knowing I had to think quickly. I turned to grab my phone from the kitchen, pulling up the video I had captured of our earlier argument, my last lifeline in a situation spiraling out of control. As the police stepped inside, I held my phone up. I have evidence, I said, my voice steady. She's been threatening me. What? Lily shouted, disbelief washing over her face. You can't be serious. Mark, don't. She pleaded, her eyes wide with panic. You're making a mistake. But the officers weren't paying attention to her. They were focused on me, looking at the screen as I played the video. In the footage, Lily had been the one hurling threats, her voice rising in anger as she had accused me of being the problem. This isn't how it looks. She tried to explain, but the officers exchanged glances, clearly uncertain of who to believe. Ma'am, we're going to need you to step outside, one of the officers said firmly. You're being detained for making threats. What? She exclaimed, her face paling as they led her outside. Mark! You can't do this to me. I didn't do anything, Lily, I said, feeling a mix of guilt and triumph. You did this to yourself. As she was taken outside, I could hear her voice rising in desperation. This is insane. You're ruining everything. I stepped out onto the porch, watching as the officer spoke to her, taking down her side of the story. But it was too late. The damage had been done, and in that moment, I knew there was no turning back. They placed her in handcuffs, and I felt a cold rush of satisfaction wash over me. She had pushed me to this point, and now, she was facing the consequences of her actions. I hope you think about this while you're gone, I called out, my voice steady, even as my heart raced. This is what happens when you don't respect the people you love. As the police car pulled away, taking her away from the house, I stood there in silence, the weight of everything settling in. I had fought back, but at what cost? The thrill of revenge was quickly replaced by a hollow feeling, the house suddenly too quiet. I had won this battle, but it felt like I had lost so much more in the process. With Lily gone, I knew I needed to figure out what came next. The anger had given way to a sense of emptiness, and I was left alone to navigate the ruins of our once happy life. The thought of moving on felt daunting, but I also knew I couldn't let this define me. As I turned back inside, the darkness of the house felt heavier than ever, and I realized I was standing at the edge of a new chapter, one I would have to write for myself. The weeks that followed Lily's arrest were a blur of chaotic emotions and unexpected clarity. The once vibrant home I shared with her felt like a hollow shell, echoing with memories of laughter and love now replaced by silence and solitude. The house that had been a refuge now loomed over me like a weight, a constant reminder of everything that had gone wrong. I spent the first few days in a daze, going through the motions of life but feeling detached from reality. The initial rush of vindication from seeing Lily face the consequences of her actions was fading, replaced by an overwhelming sense of loss. I knew I had to make a choice, either let the bitterness consume me or start to rebuild my life. On a chilly Saturday morning, I woke up with a newfound determination. I poured myself a cup of coffee and took a moment to breathe in the familiar aroma, reminding myself that I still had a life to live. The sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the dust particles that danced in the air. It felt like a sign, a gentle nudge that perhaps it was time to clean up not just the house, but my life as well. I grabbed my phone and texted my best friend, Jake. Can we meet up? I need to talk. A few minutes later, my phone buzzed with a reply. Of course. Let's hit that new cafe downtown. I'll be there in half an hour. After a quick shower and a change of clothes, I left the house, locking the door behind me. The cool air hit me as I stepped outside, and I took a deep breath, trying to shake off the heaviness in my chest. At the cafe, the scent of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, and I spotted Jake at a corner table. He looked up and waved, his expression a mix of concern and support. As I approached, he rose and gave me a quick hug. Hey man! You've been through hell. How are you holding up? He asked, his tone sincere. I sighed, settling into the chair across from him. I'm trying to figure that out. It feels like everything I knew is gone. Jake leaned in, his brows furrowing. I can't imagine what you're going through. But you're not alone in this. You've got me, thanks, I replied, forcing a smile. It's just, I thought our marriage was solid. I never saw this coming. Sometimes people surprise you, he said gently. What are you going to do next? I stirred my coffee, the steam curling up to my face. I've been thinking about moving on. Not just from Lily but from everything that held me back. I can't let her actions define the rest of my life. Jake nodded, encouragement shining in his eyes. That's a good mindset. Have you thought about what that looks like for you, honestly? I've considered taking some time off work and maybe traveling a bit. I need to reconnect with myself, I admitted, feeling a flicker of excitement at the thought. That sounds amazing. Where would you go? He asked, genuinely interested. I don't know yet. Somewhere warm, maybe a beach. Just to clear my head, I said, picturing myself soaking in the sun and letting the waves wash away the remnants of my past. Jake smiled. I think you should do it. You deserve to rediscover who you are outside of all this drama. As we chatted, I felt the weight begin to lift. The idea of starting fresh was invigorating, and for the first time since everything fell apart, I felt a spark of hope. Over the next few weeks, I made significant changes in my life. I began exercising regularly, finding solace in the rhythm of my footsteps on the pavement as I ran through the nearby park. I also started cleaning out the house, packing away mementos of Lily that served as reminders of a life that was no longer mine. With every box I filled, I felt lighter, as if I was shedding the emotional baggage that had weighed me down. One evening, I sat on the porch, watching the sunset. The sky was painted in hues of orange and pink, and for the first time in a long time, I felt a sense of peace. Just then, my phone buzzed again, this time with a text from my parents. We're coming over for dinner. Can't wait to see you. I smiled, grateful for their support. I wanted to share my progress with them, to show them that I was moving forward. When they arrived, my mom embraced me tightly. We've missed you, Mark. How have you been? I'm getting there, I said, gesturing for them to sit at the dining table. I've been making some changes, trying to find my footing again. Dad raised an eyebrow, a hint of curiosity in his gaze. What kind of changes? I took a deep breath, feeling a surge of confidence. I'm planning to take some time off work to travel. I want to explore and really figure out what I want moving forward. That sounds fantastic, Mom exclaimed, her eyes lighting up. You deserve a break after everything you've been through. Yeah, I chuckled. I think it's time to focus on me for a while. No more living in the shadows of my past. Just remember, it's okay to take your time, Dad added, his tone steady. Healing isn't linear, and it's all right to feel a bit lost. I nodded, grateful for their understanding. Thanks, Dad. I appreciate that. As we shared dinner, the laughter and love filled the space, reminding me of what I had been missing. I realized that while my marriage had ended, my life was far from over. I still had family and friends who cared about me deeply, and that was a foundation I could build on. In the weeks that followed, I booked a trip to Mexico, excited about the adventures that awaited me. I researched activities, hiking, beach time, local cuisine, and began to imagine a version of myself that was free from the pain of my past. The day before my departure, I stood in front of the mirror, feeling a mixture of anxiety and excitement. I was stepping into the unknown, leaving behind the memories of Lily and our life together. This is your chance, Mark, I said to my reflection. You've got this. As I packed my bags, my phone chimed again. It was a message from Jake. Ready for your adventure? Let's plan a night out before you go. I smiled, feeling the thrill of possibility. Definitely. How about dinner at that new Italian place? Perfect. Can't wait to celebrate your new beginning. The thought of starting anew invigorated me. I was ready to embrace change and finally let go of the shadows of my past. As I closed my suitcase, I felt a sense of closure wash over me, a bittersweet farewell to a chapter that had closed, and the promise of a fresh start waiting just beyond the horizon. With one last glance at the house that had held so many memories, I whispered a silent goodbye. It was time to move on, and I was ready to face whatever came next.